Welcome. You're listening to How I Did That, a storytelling podcast. Let's jump into today's episode.
Hi, Corey.
Well, my name is Corey. I'm 22 years old. I currently work at a tourist attraction in Jasper, Alberta, in the Canadian Rockies. So beautiful out here. Just kind of the main reason I wanted to come out here, I guess, to see the mountains for the first time. I initially got into the travel and tourism industry. Well, it's a bit of a longer story, but I originally went to school for social work because something I really like to do was always help people. And obviously that was kind of my go-to with social work, so I can help people. But then when I actually went to the program, while it was definitely interesting stuff, I just realized it's not something that I could personally work in. And I would just like to help people on a more personal level, I suppose. So I did take 2 years off and did a lot of traveling. East Coast Canada was a very fun road trip. I went to Ireland, a bunch of states, because it's a bit easy to travel there from Canada and cheaper, of course. And then I kind of just realized that I love traveling, and that there's that saying, it's like, oh, if you work doing something you love, then you won't hate it, which I do want to come back to later because my views on that has changed. But that's initially why I went to the travel and tourism industry, because I like to help people, I like to travel, so why not kind of work in something where I help people with their travels. I did a 2-year program at the college in travel and tourism. We were required to do a placement in a travel and tourism industry. I went to work in a hotel in New Brunswick, which was pretty cool, being by the coast. And again, I did an East Coast Canadian road trip, so it was really fun being back there. And then once I finished my diploma, I wanted to explore the other side of Canada. So I came out to Alberta, see the mountains, and been here ever since.
Cool. So I wanted to ask, when you said you like to help people, why was social work the go-to? Because I think that every single job out there, many of them do directly impact somebody's life. Like, say, as a doctor, obviously you can save someone's life. As a social worker, you can help somebody. As a, psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist, engineer. Why did you choose social work? Like, why was that your go-to?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of different things. Like you mentioned, doctors, of course, they help people quite a lot. But I was not so strong in the sciences and maths in school, so that kind of really cut off that for me. Being in high school, you're being asked to choose your career path when you're a teenager, essentially. And I guess I'm not really sure why that was my go-to. I think it's just because what I was good at in school, so essays, presentations, and I really like to be an advocate for underprivileged people as well. And I believe social workers, along with doctors, of course, but again, not science friendly here, social workers definitely reach out to those people the most, and that was something I was interested in helping out with at first.
Oh, I see. But within social work, aren't there many different subcategories? Like, couldn't you work as a social worker? Couldn't you go into abusive situations and remove children from those situations? Or you could be working in an elderly care home, or I don't know. There can be many different things. Like, did you have one specific stream in mind?
Yeah, so I was actually originally double majoring in social work and women's studies. And where we're from, there is actually a specific organization that I was wanting to work with. They help immigrant women who are just come to Canada, I guess help them out with what they need help with, essentially. Finding services that they need, being someone to talk to, stuff like that. My mom was an immigrant woman, and while she did have resources here because she had family here already, there are some people who don't have that option, and they need someone to help them out, to live in a new country and find those different resources that they may not have known about previously. So that was kind of what I had in mind originally.
Did you finish like your social work degree before you ended up switching to travel, or was that like halfway through?
No, I didn't finish. I didn't even make it halfway through. I just did 1 year, and that's when I decided I needed to take a break from that, figure out what I was going to do. So I actually took 2 years off. I took 2 gap years before deciding to go back to school to just learn about another industry.
Oh, I see. And those 2 years were the years you traveled?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's cool. And then
I had a full-time job during those years, which really helped with me funding these travels.
Once you decided like you wanted to get into the travel industry, why did you choose travel and tourism? Is that really the only degree out there with travel related?
No, there's a lot of degrees relate to travel and tourism because there's so many different aspects of it.
What other degrees could somebody do? What other degrees could somebody graduate with if they wanted to get into that industry?
So definitely business management is a big one, because where I work is like a mom and pop tourist attraction. It's not owned by anything corporate, just by a bunch of local shareholders who have experience owning a business. There's stuff like hospitality specific classes, which kind of are geared towards hotels and the food part of the tourism industry as well. And then there's other stuff too that you might not even think of, like marketing. You can be a marketing supervisor for a tourist attraction. There's IT department that helps with the internal software, getting things fixed when they break. And maintenance. We have electricians that work for us, engineers, stuff like that. So it's a very diverse group for sure. And maybe these people didn't specifically have the tourism industry in mind when they got their job or when they decided on what they wanted to do, but it's where they ended up anyway. So it's pretty cool to see that too.
Oh, I see what you mean, because every company would need like electricians or engineers or IT or people like doing the other like technical work in the background. But
exactly.
But what about if somebody wanted to really be the person guiding others with their travels like you do? What other degrees could they have done aside from travel and tourism?
Yeah, so there's hospitality courses, event management, and to be honest, a lot of the tourism industry jobs is training on the spot. So don't necessarily need a degree. It might be more helpful because you have a kind of a knowledge of how the way you learn things. But for example, if you want to be a tour guide, if you work for Kentucky Tours, that's just an example. I'm not sure how every tourism tour guiding stuff works like or anything like that, but they'll train you. If you want to specialize in Western Canada, someone I know has done, they'll train you. They'll put you on already made tours so you can kind of see how the other tour guides run, how things work, how things don't work, how you would add your own personal flair to your speeches and your guiding. So a lot of it can be just real world training. It doesn't necessarily have to be a degree.
With most people who end up becoming tour guides or working in the position that you're working in, or the people you work with, do you think most of the people you work with do have some kind of travel and or tourism related diploma or degree or education, I should say?
Yeah, a lot of people do. So for example, my boss, like I said earlier, hospitality you can get into. That's what she initially went to school for. A lot of my coworkers have the same diploma as I do, travel and tourism. But there's a lot of people with degrees, again, like marketing, history, that kind of just wanted to take a break after school, came out to the mountains to work, and now they're moving up in the company. So I wouldn't say everyone has a travel tourism related degree, but a lot of people have a different type of education that they've applied in this new situation and just kind of grew up that way.
I see. Are there any people who kind of learned travel and tourism through traveling on their own, and then they just came and applied and got the position without having a related education?
Yes, I would say that's actually the majority of people out here. In fact, a lot of people here are from Australia or New Zealand. Not so much anymore, but in previous years, honestly, Canadians were outnumbered. And it's because, they've all traveled. The classic one is the Europe trip, going to a bunch of European countries. And then they decided they want to explore the other side of the world, and they come to Canada.
Why specifically was it a lot of people from New Zealand and Australia?
Mostly because the visa is easy to get. We're both under we're all under the Commonwealth, I should say. So really, all they need is their certain amount of money in their account, a job offer, and then they can just come over.
Oh, that's awesome! So their visa application process is different than somebody coming from, say, like Europe.
Exactly, yeah. People from the UK are also under the Commonwealth.
What did you actually do in your travel and tourism degree? Maybe for people who wanted to get into it, like what kind of coursework did you take? Because it was 2 years long, right?
Yeah, so to be honest, the program is very heavily geared towards travel agents, which is not something I necessarily wanted to do, but I just stuck it through. You learn about a lot of different industries within the tourism industry. So the cruise ships, hotels, resorts, the food industry. So we had classes specifically based on, the sectors of the tourism industry. We had some tour guiding classes too, which was really fun. I think that would be my favorite class, actually. I know that's not what you asked, but basically you, throughout the semester, would be given different places, and it would get harder as it go on, but you'd be given different places, your target audience, and you have to just create a speech generated on where you are, what your tour guiding group is. For example, I did a trip to Israel once, and my target audience was seniors, so I kind of made some jokes about, no, don't fall in that hole, Daniel, or whatever. We know you're a faller. Just kind of stuff like that. Keep people on their feet. Because you really do have to know your audience when it comes to tour guiding and everything like that.
I see. So you said it was geared more towards travel agents, so people who would be booking different aspects of like your travel for you. That's exactly what you were learning. Okay. You were also taught about like being a travel guide as well as being a travel agent.
Exactly, yeah. And another one class that we had all throughout the 2 years was called Destination. So Destinations 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's a class each semester. And so we'd be learning about a different part of the world each time, and then we'd be given. It was similar to tour guiding, but also not really. It was almost like a sales pitch. You had to sell the destination you were doing. I had Louisiana for one of them, Belgium. Dang, I don't even remember the other two, but that was pretty cool. We just talked about the cuisine, the different tourist attractions you can do, how easy or hard it is to get to certain places, how you can travel there cheap if you could, and just different stuff like that. Just trying to just sell where you're going to the class.
I see. And then once you graduated, how did you end up getting a job all the way in Alberta? Oh, and you mentioned you did an internship in New Brunswick as well. Mm-hmm. Did your program require a co-op, like one co-op?
Yes, they did require it.
And then what did you get to do and implement from your diploma at that position?
The one in New Brunswick?
Yeah.
Basically, it was mostly just guest interactions, I would say, because I was a housekeeper, which is kind of back of house work. You're not really frontline staff dealing with guests a lot, but you do sometimes, they're just walking through the halls. They want to ask, the local experience, where they should visit, what's a good place to eat. And, as someone who works in the travel industry, you really need to know that kind of stuff. Especially for me, I really do like to help people with their travels, so I want to make sure they get the best experience where they are.
Going back to what I said earlier about Alberta, once you graduated, how were you able to get a job up there?
I really enjoyed not living at home, I guess. It was really cool to see another part of Canada. I had been to Vancouver before in BC, as you know, quite a long time ago when I was in high school, and I really wanted to go back to the West Coast. So I was looking for jobs all over Canada. I was kind of focusing on the East or the West Coast a bit more. And a lot of my main concern, I guess, was housing. And a lot of the tourist places in the Canadian Rockies, because they're so isolated, they offer staff housing. Because most people are seasonal, they don't want to come and rent and sign a year lease or 2-year lease. They just want to come and then leave when they can. So that was my biggest pull to working in the Canadian Rockies, was that I'd be able to find accommodation right away. And if I wanted to move out at a later time, I had somewhere to live already. I didn't have to deal with that. When I initially was applying for jobs out here, I actually got a job as a server at Lake Louise, the Fairmont. But I don't know, serving wasn't something I wanted to do. It's not really in my ballpark. But I was like, you know what? I will just go out there so I can be out there, and then I'll find something else when I'm out there. I still kept applying for jobs, and that's how I got my second job offer, which is the one I ended up going for. So it was as a tour guide on one of the attractions here in Jasper. It wasn't big tours, it was just 7-minute long tours, because that's just how long the experience was, which was pretty cool. And again, I learned so many things from college, like, knowing your target audience. You kind of have to suss out who is in your tour group before you decide what jokes you can make and what you want to tell them. And that's kind of how I originally got out here.
How was the job application process? Because I'm not sure what it's like in that industry. Like when you're applying to jobs, usually it takes at least for me, it took months to actually find a position, just because I didn't have a lot of experience. And for you mentioned you got to do one co-op, but I'm sure there are people who have even more experience. Just as an entry-level position, how hard did you find the job search, and what are some tips you would give to students applying to jobs in the travel industry?
Well, it is a bit different now, to be honest. For me, though, it was not too hard, just because a lot of tourism jobs have such a high turnover. So employers are constantly coming and leaving. Especially, like I said earlier, a lot of them are overseas workers. I think for me it was a bit easier to get into because they were like, oh, Canadian, someone who might stay longer term, which is what I ended up doing. So that was a good move on their part, I suppose. It was, to be honest, a fairly easy process to apply to these jobs. Now, honestly, I would say now it's still easier to apply to tourism jobs. Most tourism jobs are desperate for people to come in. You would think the capacity for tourism would have died down, but a lot of Canadians now have the opportunity to explore their own country. So honestly, just as busy everywhere. And then now there's less staff because, one, the overseas workers aren't here, and two, working in the travel industry in the pandemic is not something a lot of people would want to do, to be honest. And a lot of them offer very low wages as well. So don't really blame them for that.
See, I did think that the travel industry would have died down during the pandemic, but you're right that people have to stay within their own country and that they're just exploring within these boundaries. So what do you like to do at your position?
So for me, I am one of the guest services managers now. I'm not in the tour guiding thing anymore. So essentially my job is to, answer phone calls, answer emails, make sure invoices are correct, because as we talked about earlier, travel agents like to book stuff for other people. So we have to make sure we're billing them right and that the customer, or I guess our mutual guest, is satisfied with when they want to come, their tour, everything like that. A lot of it is corresponding with different departments, making sure everything is running smoothly as well. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward essentially. Obviously, dealing with problems as they come up. Guess there's always going to be an angry person, so you kind of just have to learn how to learn how to diffuse the situations with those people. And again, trying to make their experience a bit better. I have learned to, some people just want to be angry. Sometimes you just gotta let it happen. Leave the situation, have a little ramble with your team, and then move on.
Right.
But yeah, it's a lot of admin work essentially.
Okay. So how did the job differ from what you thought it would be like, or was it exactly what you thought it was going to be?
It was pretty much exactly what I thought it was going to be. The tour guiding supervisor last year, he was very thorough in explaining what my job would be during the interview, just to make sure I actually wanted it, I suppose. So yeah, it was pretty much what I expected. And then when I moved to guest services at the department and applied for manager, kind of knew what I was getting into as well. Just classic customer service stuff.
How has the pandemic affected the company?
Well, numbers-wise, there is definitely less people visiting our attraction. But because of we're running at half capacity, my places, and lower hours too, because we don't have the staff to run all day, so we run 9 to 5 every day. Because of that, we tend to fill up really quickly because half capacity, so it takes half the time to actually sell out of tickets for our place, which has been a bit stressful, to be honest. We do try to push online booking on our social medias and on our website, but not everyone is going to check those, right? So we always have people walking up and getting disappointed because we can't accommodate them for that day, which is, very, very unfortunate, unfortunately. So in regards to our company, we are making less money for sure. We are still very busy though. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. But had you guys shut down for a period of time?
Yeah, so they actually ended up shutting down the national parks to people who don't live in them. Not all national parks have a town in them, but Jasper and Banff do. So people, they shut down services, so there were no campgrounds available. All the porta potties weren't being cleaned, and they were all locked. If parked at the trailhead, you get a ticket for that. So yeah, we were closed. Legally, we had to be closed. And then when the parks opened on June 1st, we reopened right away.
I forgot to ask you earlier, what exactly does that, like the mom and pop place that you work at, what do they do? What kind of tours do you guys give?
So we bring people up the mountain without the hiking, essentially. So it's like a tram car that goes up the mountain. A lot of people think it's a gondola, which is a similar concept where we bring people up the mountain, but the tram cars are a lot bigger and they hold a lot more people, and it's standing room. So instead of a bunch of gondolas constantly going up, there's only one going up and down the mountain because multiple people can fit in those.
Okay, and then it's just do they just do like gondola rides basically around the mountain, or not gondola, but like tram rides around the mountains? Do you ever get bored of doing the same thing? Like, is it very repetitive?
It is for sure repetitive, yeah. Especially, it really is entirely dependent on who you're guiding with, because there's some people who are very animated. They want to interact with you and they want to ask questions that maybe you don't normally talk about, but you know the answer to. So you can be like, oh, yes, I do know this. Let me help you. So it really is entirely dependent on the guest, really, if they want to talk to you. And sometimes, to be honest, I get through half my tour and I realize that not everyone's really listening. And that's a bit awkward because I'm just like, oh, do I continue talking or do I just stand there in silence for the rest of the ride? So that's a bit difficult to navigate for sure.
Oh, like you feel like the audience and be like, they're not interested, or
yeah, and there's a lot of big families too that fill up one tram car, and they just want to hang out among themselves, take pictures of each other, and it's just like, oh, I'll interact with them in a conversation manner, but not speaking at them like all these facts about the area. I'll just be like, hey, what have you done so far? Maybe I can suggest some things to you. And they see those kind of groups seem to enjoy that type of thing, rather than, if you look to your left, you can see.
Are you in Banff specifically?
I'm in Jasper. So okay. Jasper and Banff, they're two different national parks. So it's a bit confusing. So obviously the town of Jasper is in Jasper National Park, and there's two towns in Banff called Banff and Lake Louise. So Lake Louise is its own town as well.
Do you do tour guides of the Icefelds Parkway? Is that in Banff or Jasper?
So it actually connects the two parks. I don't do the tour guiding of the parkway, but there are other companies that do it. Not this year, but yeah, it's a very beautiful drive. There you see mountains the whole way. There's really nice lakes, waterfalls. So I definitely recommend doing that drive.
Going to the very top, and they had like glacier water that you could there was like obviously like glacier water at the top, so people brought water bottles and were like trying to collect some water.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And it was like really, really cold up there, and I went in the summer. I went at the end of August.
I actually went in August as well. Last August, probably not the same August as you, but yeah.
It was really weird. It was really interesting because we were at the top and just everything was ice. It was like the middle of the summer, and then we went back down and we were like, oh, this is so hot. So where do you see yourself going in this industry in the future?
To be honest, I do want to do some more behind the scenes work. Being on the front lines in a tourism industry has definitely been super stressful. I actually recently applied to an IT position because they said they would train me even if I don't have background. So I'd still be working with the same company, getting all the same perks, just a different capacity.
And what would you recommend to new graduates who want to work in tourism? What would you tell them what to expect? Any tips?
Tips, definitely apply somewhere where you actually want to be at. Does that make sense? Whether it's the actual job, or even the place you'll be living in, because, I'm sure as the same with every industry, but it gets really stressful. Working directly with people who, vacation brain really, really muddles things up, I found. So you definitely need to be somewhere where you like to live in. That way you can de-stress when you leave your workplace, It's hard to do this vaguely, but for example, for me in Jasper, I'm surrounded by so many mountains, so many trails. So if I'm having a bad day, I can just go sit in my front lawn, check out the views, go do a hike, go do a bike ride. So you need stuff stuff around you that you like to do.
So how has the pandemic personally affected you?
So like I said earlier, it is a bit stressful. Especially, this is going to sound really mean, I think, but I feel like a lot of Canadians who are traveling in Canada are a bit entitled because, it's their country, they want to explore as much as they can. But like I said, a lot of places, and our place specifically, since we're talking about me right now, is running on a limited capacity. So unfortunately, we're just not able to accommodate everyone. And that's been a big stressor for me. Because, get the angry people yelling at me, yelling at the rest of my team. And it's never okay to talk to people in a rude manner over something so trivial like a tourist attraction. Obviously, it does suck that you wanted to visit somewhere, it's not possible. I do definitely empathize with that. It's just kind of unfortunately what it is right now. But that has been really weighing on me personally.
Just the fact that you're not able to give people the vacation they want.
Exactly.
But there's nothing you personally can do about it, right?
Exactly. It's just like, it's kind of just like it is what it is situation. Yeah, and like I said earlier, about that statement where, you know, if you're doing what you love, you never work a day in your life. And I'm just like, this feels like work. This is work. And as much as I love the tourism industry, there are just some really garbage people out there. And, you know, it's actually not the majority of them either, but there's always that one person that just brings your whole day down.
Yeah.
So that's something that's been weighing on me pretty much ever since we reopened.
Yeah. I think it's definitely true that there's always the Debbie Downer, I guess. There are always people who are going to be angry, as you said earlier, just because they want to be angry. Like, they're on vacation. You're right. Yeah. Vacation mindset that people don't really want to have to worry about anything. They just want to have everything at their fingertips because they're on vacation. It's not supposed to be work for them. It's supposed to be relaxing.
Yeah, we try to tell people, you know, like, we try to explain to them exactly why. Like, we're running at half capacity. We just fill up quicker than normal. And some people do understand. I would say most people do understand.
Yeah.
And then there's, there's always that person who's like, are you sure? Can you check? Are you sure?
Yeah. Like, Is it on the website?
It is on the website, yeah, that we recommend pre-booking.
Or that you're like running at half capacity, that it fills up really quickly.
Oh, yeah. Our whole health and safety pledge is on the website. Kind of the steps we've taken to help people feel safer. And I feel like a lot of people who do get angry aren't necessarily, they're just angry at the situation, but they take it out on the person in front of them, which is very, very unfortunate.
Yeah. Aside from that, like, how has it been like just moving from Ontario to Alberta? Any really big differences that you noticed?
Yeah, well, honestly, health-wise, I'm doing so much better. I think the air must be obviously very clear out here. We're in the middle of the mountains, so not too much pollution. Living in the city really messed up my sinuses, but out here they're nice and clear, so that's really awesome. One thing I do miss, though, is living near a big city, because it is kind of nice to go and do some shopping. Here it's mostly just tourism shops, so I always have to like plan a whole trip to go shopping.
What's the nearest like shopping city?
It's Edmonton.
The big shopping mall?
Yeah,
so
it's
I went there.
4 hours away. That mall is so big. Yeah. The first time I went there, I was meeting my parents there. Because they came to visit me last year.
What twist, you never found each other?
Honestly, though, they texted me where they were, and I was like, I don't know where I am. Like,
it was so big. They had like a swimming pool and a hockey rink and an amusement park and
a water park.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that place is so big.
Just for somebody moving to the west coast of Canada, because Alberta's like all the way like far, far west, right?
Yeah.
Like what recommendations would you give? Like what, I guess, like expectation versus reality, things you noticed?
Yeah, moving to a completely new place is really difficult, to be honest. Especially for me, there was nobody out here that I didn't move with anyone. I don't know anybody out here. So it was definitely a bit harder to make some friends when I first got here. But if I could go back and do something differently, I would say just join every single hobby group you can find, essentially. I ended up joining choir. I went to art classes. I went to Spanish classes, and I met so many people through these new hobbies that I was trying out that I made friends that way. So even if you don't find friends right away in your coworkers, if you have moved for a job, just keep exploring, keep trying, and even if you don't make friends, at least you're doing something new, keeping yourself active, not just laying in bed laying in bed at home or anything like that. So definitely, it's easier said than done, of course, but definitely just keep trying to put yourself out there. That way you're constantly interacting with new people, which, by the way, could even help with your career because you know those connections, but it'll also help you find a support system as well.
Mm-hmm. Anything else specifically related to like living on the very west coast of Canada that you think people might find surprising?
If you schedule something, so there's something we call mountain time, which is basically if you schedule something for 10, it's going to be at 10:30.
Okay.
Everyone just does not, they're just like, yeah, we're in the mountains. We're taking it easy. Mountain time. We'll be there when we be there. It's something I've been trying to kind of unlearn because every time I schedule something, I'm like, okay, I need to be there for then. So they're not waiting on me. But then everyone just comes whenever they want.
So that was really everything I wanted to talk to you about. Your journey, working in the travel industry. I just wanted to hear about your journey working in the travel industry and what, so on a parting note, what would be your dream job in this industry?
That is definitely hard to say, because, my dream job is to not be working and somehow make money at the same time. No. I would definitely love to own some sort of tourist attraction. As someone who kind of initially got into this industry by tour guiding, I think I would like to do something like that where, this is just an idea, but just like own an Airbnb somewhere, and then have driving tours that like you can only book if you're with my Airbnb, so that be included. So for example, if I were to do this in Alberta, I would just do it in one of the cities so Calgary or Edmonton. I would do it in there, and then just do driving tours down the Icefields Parkway, kind of what like those big tour buses do, but it would just be kind of like a van so that people can have a personalized experience.
That's amazing. What changes would you like to see implemented in the travel industry? What do you think needs to change? Or is there anything that needs to change to enhance someone's travel experience, or just things that the industry should be doing that they're not?
That is really hard to say, to be honest. I do like the changes we have made because of the pandemic. So everything has been more sanitary, less people, so you can kind of have, I guess, the area to yourself. You're not just constantly bombarded with people. So I would honestly say just stick to the changes we've made. Obviously, once the pandemic dies down, is over, things might go slightly back to what it has been, but I do like the idea that there's sanitizing stations everywhere. People are constantly cleaning now. We're not all up in each other's space anymore all the time. So I would like to see those changes kept. Essentially, I would say just be kind to people while you're traveling. Sometimes mistakes that are the fault of the company can happen, but honestly, everybody who is working in the travel industry, especially right now, works really hard. They're honestly trying their best. So just be kind, help them, work with them, and pre-book. Help you in return.
And pre-book.
Yes, and pre-book. Yeah. Everything.
So you don't have problems because they don't get a spot. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was really fun.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into today's episode, and we'll see you next time.